him joining us each week throughout the playoffs. Joining us each week, apparently joining everybody each week, from The Athletic, the one, the only, Sam Amick. Hello, Sam.
Good morning, gentlemen. How the heck are we?
Good. Haven't heard you on the station in a while. How you been?
Wow.
Do you have anything new for us today, or should we just replay yesterday's interview, Sam?
You're just coming in hot, aren't you?
We actually had an off-air conversation. It was like super nice. I'm like, oh, no, that's great. Big news broke yesterday. He was on with Deuce and Mo, which is awesome get. And obviously you want Sam on to break all that stuff down. No problem. But Sam, you had to kind of know I was going to play Jilted Ex-Lover today.
Yeah, I was going to say, is this how you are with Melissa?
Yes.
Like when she goes to the grocery store?
Yes.
Like, I saw you looking at that guy in the frozen meat aisle.
Aisle 3, keep your eyes off the meats. Wait, okay, never mind. Yeah, that did redirect. Let's just redirect here. Well, let's start off with the big news of the week. Obviously, I know you talked about it yesterday. I know you wrote about it as well on The Athletic. But hey, guess what? The Sacramento Kings have a coach and a GM. Their contracts are aligned. I don't know what to do with my hands.
Yeah, they do. Timing is everything, as they say. Although in this case, it's like timing didn't matter. You had Mike out there, Mike Brown, on a 4-year contract with the somewhat awkwardness of hey, I'm good to go with the Kings contractually, and then the GM was a lame duck for quite some time. And as you guys know, there was never that serious angst around the situation. At least I didn't think that was the case. I think there was some from Monty's side, as far as a desire to get a deal done, but it was never this thing that was tugging at their group. And all in all, I think that all parties seem to handle it pretty well. But now they get the deal done. They settle on a 3-year deal with Monty that, like you said, gets Mike and Monty and I believe Wes Wilcox as well on the same timeline, same track, pulling in the same direction. Good things are happening for these guys.
Yeah, Sam, all of it makes 100% sense based on the success they've had, based on the moves Monty has made. Just that last part, I guess, you said there was no real angst. I think we all thought it was going to happen, but it still has to. Why? I guess the question is why now? What was that final push to make sure it was all locked in?
There was, even though Monty had, publicly and privately, even in my experience, not been, like I said, having angst, talking about it a lot. And I guess to maybe juxtapose it a little bit with a story we wrote yesterday about the Bob Myers situation with the Warriors, that one I would say is very different. He has no contract for next year. And there's tons of behind the scenes conversations with people who love Bob saying, this is garbage. This is ridiculous. How do they now lock him up? And so there is a lot of angst there. This one, the why now component, I think, is that all of that being said, Monty's, representation was pushing, with Monty's blessing behind the scenes to get something done. And I think there was a sense that if you wait toward the summertime, and this is just common sense in life, is if person A has a lot of success at this job and then hits a period of time like the off season where other opportunities might come their way, then it's only natural to consider other stuff. And I think they, if you're going to troll me, Dave, I'm going to quote Deuce and Mo on your show. One of them mentioned yesterday, that just the general mentality of yesterday's price is not today's price. And that was, I think, from a market standpoint, some of that was happening with Monty. Listen, if you become the GM, and this is where it gets tricky. We'll get into this. If you become the GM that got the Kings back in the playoffs, that's a pretty darn good thing to put on your resume, and would come at a steeper price in the summertime.
Yeah, and I think that, to your point, Sam Amick joins us from The Athletic. I think to your point, the Kings are hypersensitive right now and always to bad PR. And obviously the team making the playoffs, there's just, you can't let him go. It seemed like with every win, Monty had more leverage. And then I also find myself wondering, is it a coincidence that a week ago they kept showing him on TV with Daryl Morey, who was in town, and maybe Daryl was saying, he was saying really loudly, hey, Monty, if it doesn't work here, you can always come back to me. And somebody heard it, and signed him, but he had a lot of leverage, I would imagine, with the Kings.
Yeah, and I only Monty knows like where his head is at, but it's funny you highlight that. Like, I did find that interesting. You know, again, this is just regular life stuff that everybody can relate to. You know, saying this somewhat lightheartedly, but if Sactown Sports decided they weren't sure if they wanted me to be a friend of the show anymore, you know, I'd tweet out pictures of Dave and I going to dinner. You know,
Right.
like Monty was hanging out with Daryl Morey, who was a guy who, you know, it's pretty widely known that Vivek Ranadive had, you know, thought highly of and kind of, you know, the type of executive he'd been interested in for quite some time. In that same vein, you know, Sam Hinkie, formerly of Philadelphia and Houston with Daryl Morey, was in town recently, and Monty spent time with Sam sitting at a game. It was all very public, and it did kind of feel like it was a bit of an optics flex, if that makes sense.
Talking with Sam Amick again. All guests come to you from the Folsom Lake Honda Hotline. Folsom Lake Honda, your one-stop Honda shop. Sam, if a coaching staff, a head coach has some success over time, generally an assistant, a lead assistant might get picked off of that team and go and start another, you know, lead another franchise. Kind of in that same sense, Monty and the whole front office, Wes Wilcox, you mentioned him, and others this has worked. They've done a really good job. What are the odds that anybody in that front office also gets looked at elsewhere?
Yeah, I think typically that would be the case. You know, it could be the case for now, and this could change. You know, I sense, you know, I don't necessarily foresee that happening. You know, Wes seems to click well with Monty, and honestly, to his credit, you know, has kind of convinced me and a lot of others that is truly the case. When there was a time when, you know, we're all kind of guilty in the media of like you kind of look at power dynamics and you go, well, this one guy, you know, meaning Wes, used to be a GM, and you know, surely he'd like to be on top again. So what does that mean for Monty? And we were all kind of waiting to see if those power dynamics shifted, and instead they've had a very comfortable, cohesive partnership that I think they're you know, both good with going forward and really seem to have really good chemistry. And personality-wise, they complement one another. Roster-wise, obviously, they've done some good stuff. So, you know, I could see it happening, but I also think that this Sacramento story, if it does continue down this arc, that, you know, everybody with this group is you know, mainly just excited to try to see it through, because it will be something that you're talking about, a very passionate fan base in a vibrant market. It is going to feel, you know, I mean, honestly, like it's part of the NBA again after this incredibly terrible 15, 16-year stretch.
Sam Amick with us. Sam, last thing. I'm not going to ask you specifically about Monty. That's unfair. Let me ask you philosophically from a GM's point of view in your experience. When a GM gets locked up, does that generally, more often than not, enough to notice, affect his decision-making process both now and for future deals? Do you see a difference at all over time?
Yeah, I mean, generally speaking, I can see that being the case. But who knows? It's hard to handicap this stuff. You know, earlier this year, you know, Rob Pelinka was the Lakers GM, of course, was moving in the kind of way that you kind of, I remember wondering, like, you know, I don't know, Rob's contract is, you know, is he doing this? Is he doing that because he's a little desperate because, you know, he might be in trouble? And then we found out that, unbeknownst to us, you know, during this time of analysis in my head, he had already been given an extension. You know what I mean? So that theory certainly fell flat. So they have, without question, though, been examples of executives that made moves that were just, you know, to save their own hide and propel their own career. So it's a factor. Monty's pretty even keel, and I give him credit because he's just not, you know, he just does the job and, you know, almost seems to kind of holistically and organically just kind of see where it takes him, and he just kind of focuses on the work, and so I give him credit for that. But yeah, I mean, again, I go back to human nature. I mean, if you're not as angsty, then you're gonna inevitably look at the long road a little more, maybe, and make sure that what's best for the organization is kind of the absolute top priority.
That's Sam Amick from The Athletic. Sam, really, really, really appreciate you giving effort this morning. I know it's been a long week for you on the airwaves here at Sactown Sports. Appreciate the double duty, and we'll talk to you in a week.
Okay, guys. Be good.
Thank you.
Sam Amick.